Hi, Rach, how are you?
Hi, Kimmy. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. We're joined today with Lenny and Iggy. I don't know if you can see them. I'll just angle my camera a bit. They're both asleep, but they wanted to join in for a special one. So, what are your New Year's resolutions or dreams and wishes for 2021, Rach?
Oh my gosh. So I was asked this the other day,
Yeah.
and two actually quite simple things that I want to do for 2021 are to finish more books. So this year I've started so many books and not finished them. And I have a Kindle, and it's so easy to find books that you like on Amazon Kindle and just buy them at the click of a finger. And before you know it, I've got 20 books on my Kindle all lined up that are half read. So that's one of my resolutions. And also, this is one I think you'll like as well. It's to wear more colour.
Ah, yes.
I tend to wear a lot of black. I've recently moved house, so I was going through all my clothes, putting things all into a new wardrobe. And it's either white, black, grey, beige. I mean, I'm wearing, what is this, like a lilac colour today?
Pastel.
Yeah.
It suits you though.
Thank you.
I like pink, but yeah, you're so right in terms of books. I have so many books that I've had for years and just haven't read.
Mm.
But then there are books that I can't put down. But I know what you mean. It's just finding the time, isn't it, to commit to being like, okay, I have to read, even just not even a chapter, just a few pages,
Yeah.
because they are so valuable and they do really help. So what book has really helped you, on a personal level that you've read recently that you recommend?
Oh my gosh. I know we're probably going to talk about my sobriety later on down the line, but for me, the most life-changing books I've read have actually been around kind of like personal development and actually sobriety. So there was a book I read back in 2000 and very beginning of 2018. It's called The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. She's actually written a few others since as well, but that for me is probably the book that absolutely changed my life.
Really? And did that change? So did you read that book when you made the decision to not drink anymore? Or did that happen during, the 2.5 years that you have been sober so far?
Yeah, so I read my first book on kind of sobriety and giving up drinking in December 2017. And I read that book basically with tears in my eyes because there's a part of me in there that just knew that it resonated so much with me and what the author was writing about. And before I read that book, I never thought that I was somebody that would either want to go sober, want to give up drinking, or would ever be sober. But I read it in tears because it was just so relatable.
Mm.
Okay, and then, so that was about November, December 2017. And then Catherine Gray's book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, came out the new year, so the January of 2018. So I pre-ordered it and then I read it in the January. Again, my mind was absolutely blown. I was reading a story about this woman, Catherine Gray, so it's a memoir essentially. And it was like I was reading my own autobiography.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing, but it also made me realize that, this sobriety thing was something I should probably consider. And I didn't stop drinking until May 2018. So it took a good sort of 5,
So
6
it was
months.
all like leading up to that. And probably subconsciously you were picking up on, all these signs along the way. So what was it, Rach, that made you twig and think, right, I have to do this for me? What made you make that decision and commit? Because it is a big commitment. Like I've known you for years, since I was 16, and Rachel's from Bath and I'm from Cheltenham, and we both moved to London. You're a couple of years older than me. And we've had some really good times, obviously, from like living in Hampstead together to London Studio Centre, and we've been on holiday together. And yeah, you were quite the party animal. Like, you love a night out. You and Chelsea, I mean, on another level. So what made you change your mind, essentially?
So it was an accumulation of things and a period of time, which kind of led to a moment where I said, really, now enough is enough. And like looking back, that kind of started back when I was 18 and partying with you. Like, I've always been quite I'm a small person, as you know. I've always been a bit of a lightweight. And also I realised that I've suffered with anxiety since I was about 14. I think I had my first panic attack when I was about 14.
Oh gosh.
And, so I realised that there was some anxiety there. But when you're 18, you're going out with your friends and you're drinking with your friends and everyone's joining in and doing the same thing. It's a very easy way to kind of mask that anxiety, and becoming this like party girl. People see you as that rather than the kind of the anxious girl that you're masking.
And you feel pressure, don't you? Kind of peer pressure to do that with your friends because everybody else is probably. And at that age, you don't know any better. So you do just join in. And there's no wrong or right. Like, there's no wrong or right at all. But I do know what you're saying. Like, looking back, obviously, in our 30s now, we kind of know
and
no different.
The culture we live in, that, you know, particularly in the UK, it's like that pub culture, lad culture, where we don't have great weather, but we've got great pubs. So you can go and sit in a pub of a weekend, whereas maybe, I don't know about, you know, countries with better weather spend less time in the pub. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the culture we live in, I think, is very much like you celebrate with booze, you commiserate with booze, you booze after a hard day's work.
Yeah, and you kind of escape reality a bit, don't you? Like, I remember talking to somebody and she really said something to me that resonated. I think, I don't know what I was going through at the time, probably something in a relationship, past relationship, but she was like, when you drink, you're trying to void your own emotions because you don't want to deal with them. And when she said that, I was like, huh. It kind of like hit the nail on the head, doesn't it?
So spot on. And I know now, looking back and reflecting over my period of time where I drank, you know, throughout my 20s, that I was masking pretty much anxiety. And then by the end of my drinking, so like the worst year for me was probably 2017. And in that year, all my school friends turned 30. A lot of them got married. I was bridesmaid for quite a few. So there was the hen do's, there was the weddings.
Oh, you've been bridesmaid countless times, haven't you? Bless your heart.
Yeah, particularly that year. So 2017, it was a very, very busy year. And also, I'm going to say this because I think this is quite important, and I don't think enough people really talk about it, that I was put on antidepressants for a few years, and during 2017 I was on my antidepressants and my drinking actually got particularly bad, and I went to the doctor, and I even said to the doctor, since you put me on these tablets, my drinking, I feel like my drinking's getting quite bad, like that off switch isn't there necessarily like it has been in the past. And the doctor looked at me and said, well, you look fine, let's just up your tablets. It was unbelievable. I didn't up the tablets. And actually, the conversation, then I took myself out of that situation, and that conversation I had with myself was like, well, something's got to change then. You either come off the tablets or you stop the boozing.
Yeah, because they're both masking things, aren't they, really? You're not dealing with the real cause. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people out there that can relate and are on tablets as well to try and help. And of course they can help initially, but I think you don't want to rely on them for life, do you?
And I think it's important because there are a few friends of mine who, since I've stopped drinking, I've made quite a few sober friends, which has just been, it's just amazing. Like lifelong friends now.
Yeah.
Since cutting back, and you know, antidepressants are in some of their stories as well. So I think doctors advise not to, you shouldn't drink when you're on them, kind of thing. But I don't think that the message isn't strong enough.
And well, I mean, you tried obviously to help yourself in terms of, because dealing with anxiety, Rach, I mean, everybody has it, everybody can relate to it. And I think, I mean, you've dealt with it for such a long time. Obviously, you said you had your first panic attack at 14, bless your heart. And there are so many younger listeners right now. I feel, you know, in 2021, there's so many pressures, isn't there? And obviously with 2020 happening and all the unknownness, and kind of like, obviously, if you listen to the news and the media, it's full of fear. So that's like going into you, along with, you know, your personal life, like family, you know, your health, work, relationships, whatever it may be. So put that on top of everything. Like, no wonder there's so many people taking drugs and, you know, whatever it is, because everybody has an addiction on some level, I think, whether you want to admit it or not. So, you know, whether you can relate to this talk in terms of, okay, you may not give up a drink, but you might want to give up, you know, that food that you can't live without, or something like that. I think it all does connect and it all does relate. So in terms of, you know, your anxiety now, Rachel, how is that, you know, on a scale? Like, if you can manage it, does it escalate some days like a roller coaster, and then some days it's okay? Like, how are you finding it?
Yeah, so now I don't take the tablets, I don't drink. I do feel very raw at times. However, I have learned, particularly recently, that you have to let that voice in order for you to kind of have a conversation with yourself, learn how to, I guess, lessen the voice, quiet the voice. And I think once you can learn to do that yourself without relying on anything external, then you can kind of do anything.
And I bet you feel so much braver and confident in yourself because you've done that.
Yeah, I feel, so much stronger.
Yeah.
Even when I was on my antidepressants, there was still this part of me that knew I was relying on them. And I thought, do I want to be on these forever? Like, not necessarily. It would be great to be off them and feel strong. But one thing I would say about stopping drinking is that my self-confidence boosted once I stopped drinking, because again, I wasn't relying on something external to fit in, to crack jokes, to relax, whatever. I was essentially doing it myself. And you kind of walk away from those situations with a sense of pride, which you wouldn't get if I was sat there drinking and joining in. I wouldn't come away from the situation feeling proud of myself. But especially in the early days of quitting, maybe like the first 6 months, I was doing things that I hadn't done without a drink for years. I was going to weddings, and I was on the dance floor till 3 a.m. and, you know, going to hen dos and being the last one standing. And I'd come away from that situation feeling so proud of myself.
Because you did it without alcohol.
Yeah.
And just enjoying life. So do you feel pressure to say no, Rach? Like, is it a lot easier to say no now? You know, when somebody, I'm sure you get asked on a night out or like an event or a birthday, weddings, whatever it may be, because you might be the only one in the room, but actually there'll probably be people thinking, wow, I wish I had the strength and, you know, power to say no, because actually, do you want to drink? Like, some people enjoy it, and fair enough, that in their own right. But some people, I think, do it because they feel they have to.
Yeah, again, it's like going back to the pressure that we put on ourselves, we put on each other, that in order to fit in, you must be doing the same as everybody else. And I found that actually quite tough at the start, because it's such a huge transition for me, but also the people around me who were so used to seeing me half cut on the dance floor and joining in with the shots and talking nonsense. And then suddenly, you know, everybody knows that I'm not doing that anymore, and that actually I'm going to remember the night. It's weird for me, and it's weird for everyone.
Your close friends.
Yeah.
They're probably like, what's gotten into you? Who are you? Are you having a midlife crisis? So have you found like your groups, you know, your close friends and your relationships have changed particularly from this? Or do you find, you know, you obviously have a good support group because you need, and you've obviously made new friends from Instagram, because there's amazing people you meet obviously throughout that. So how's that changed for you, Rach?
Yeah, so I would say actually in general, I've actually gained friends. So mainly through Instagram. So I know social media has its bad points, but for me, particularly Instagram has been absolutely amazing for connecting with other like-minded people and other people who are going sober. And yeah, I've made some amazing friends through that. And then dynamics of other friendships have changed slightly. Obviously, I'm not going out drinking with friends who I would have always gone out drinking with, but then you kind of change the way you socialize. So instead, I'll go to the gym, go for coffee, go for lunch. So the way you socialize changes. There's a few people that have fallen off the radar, but then you think your true friends stand by you and support you. And then essentially you're kind of just left with a great support network.
Yeah, and sometimes naturally you just outgrow people and you go on different paths. And if people are meant to come back together in waves, it does just work like that, doesn't it? It's just life, because we're just on all different pages. And I just really admire your your real self coming through, because I feel like you're more you than ever, Rach. Like, I honestly feel that. I mean, I've known you like half my life and I've really seen you change in a good way. Like, you've blossomed and you're so much stronger. You are. I know we all have our moments, like we'll voice note each other and be like, wow, we're having one of those days, but who doesn't? But it's so good to know that you can actually, like, you know, as cheesy as it sounds, turn inward and just have that conversation with yourself and be like, you know what, I can do this. I don't need something outside of myself or someone else to fulfill that. I can, you know, have a moment, own it, and then tomorrow's a new day. So
that's exactly it. And when you start taking away like the distractions, and for me, when I was drinking, I was spending half my life half my life hungover. So I was feeling awful a lot of the time. And you take that away and you're left with yourself feeling pretty great every day. I have a clear head every day. I've got a lot more space and time in my life to do things I enjoy, work out my likes and dislikes, spend time with people I love. Whereas before, when I was drinking, I was doing things that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but it was like, oh, well, if I can drink, you know, you can take me to the shitty pub down the road, but if I'm gonna have a drink, I'll be fine. Whereas now I don't go to shitty pubs that I don't like. Yeah, I only spend my time doing things that I enjoy. Whereas before, when I was drinking, yeah, I used to pride myself on being someone that you could just take me anywhere. But you could take me anywhere because I'd had a glass of wine in me probably. So
yeah, you would be. You'd just be like, yes, whatever the question is, it's yes. So reflecting on your dance background and, you know, the past, and I know you've worked for Ministry of Sound, BBC, and now you work for Warner Brothers?
Yeah, Warner Music. So
Warner Music.
The record label.
Oh, okay. Warner Brothers is Harry Potter World, right?
Is the film and film.
Oh, right. Okay. Haley sent me something about that earlier. She was like, oh, do you want to work for Harry Potter? Be a presenter there. And I was like, I've only watched Harry Potter once, so that's in my head. Sorry. Warner Music. And what would you say to our younger listeners who are in the performing arts? What would you say to them, you know, reflecting back to 18-year-old Rach and being under the pressures that they are? Because you know what college is like, and you know, it's about going out and having fun. What would you say to like a younger Rach and to the younger listeners right now as advice and tips to deal with the situations, not only in college, but also outside of college, that is really important to your everyday life?
Yeah, I would say as long as you are loving what you do, you need to go for it and you need to stick at it. And, you know, life is short. We've only got one life, and you should be spending your time doing things that you love. So pursue your dreams, but at the same time, look after yourself. Don't push yourself to the extent of your own mental health and your own well-being. Like, get the early nights. If you want an early night, you don't have to go out with your mates. If an early night is really what you need, have the early nights. And yeah, just kind of put yourself first, but in a way like being your own best friend.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, put yourself first. I think that comes, doesn't it, in your 30s, because a lot of the time you're putting other people before you. I don't know whether it's through, you know, wanting to please people or whatever it may be, depending on, you know, the personal relationships that you're in and things like that. Obviously, everything does affect you, and you're learning so much more about yourself, aren't you? Like, I think you are you encompass someone who is standing their ground and like owning it. And I think that comes at different ages for everybody, obviously, depending what's going on in your life. But it really does connect you to like-minded people. So it's amazing that the people who do come into your life, and that's so important, isn't it, Rach, that your cheerleaders, like your people, your group of people, no matter how big, I think my group is quite small, to be honest, and I like that because they really affect you, don't they? Your friends.
Yeah, it's so important. Particularly this year, I've learned actually the importance of a good friend and actually what that means. It's not having 20 acquaintances. That's not what it's about. But it's having a few people that you can rely on to really listen to you, have empathy for your story, and are just there to support you. Kind of got your back. And if that means you've only got 2 or 3 friends, that's enough, as long as you've got that support.
And how has your family been with being there for you? Are they very supportive, or are they like, you know, she'll grow out of this?
Thankfully, extremely supportive, because my mum particularly used to be petrified when I tell her I'm going out tonight. So when I told her, so initially I had 100 days off. I never said I'm quitting for good. I initially said I'm taking 100 days off, and that was a way for my friends and actually myself to be able to kind of process what's going on. So for 100 days, don't need to drinking because I'm having a break. And my mum, I could see the relief in my mum's face. And actually, my mum hasn't had a drink for 2.5 years either. So she is sort of...
Oh, she did it with you.
Yeah.
Oh, fab. So have you been obviously like texting and calling each other, and, you know, if you have a moment, being there for each other?
The difference between me and my mum is that for her to stop drinking, it wasn't really a big deal, because she could kind of have 1 or 2 glasses a week and that was it. So it hasn't been life-changing for her. But for me, someone who was going out every other night, it has been, yeah.
Okay. On a side note, I really feel, you know, when you're under lights and you can really feel sweaty. So I'm like doing one of those Shore deodorants right now. If you're wondering, if you are watching this, hopefully you're just listening to this on the podcast. Apologize about that. On a side note. So in terms of looking forward to 2021, hopefully I feel by spring, everything will get back to, I mean, what is normal anymore, but more freedom and us being able to see each other in person. What are your hopes and dreams to come, Rach? Do you have goals that you set yourself? You know, is there a goal where you're like, you know, you're going to carry on being sober for however long? What's your mind made up about that? Are you just going with the flow?
Yeah, I'm kind of going with the flow now. So initially I said I did the 100-day break, and after the 100 days I then committed to a year. And then after that year, it's funny, I was reading back some old notes that I'd made at around a year sober. So when I first stopped drinking, because everything in my life was changing so much, I had so much going on in my head that I actually wrote, I typed quite a lot.
I do that as well. I write, it helps. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So because I knew I was obviously speaking Tuesday, I was looking back over old notes.
Oh.
And I wrote something that actually I think still stands today. And it said, I don't necessarily want to identify as somebody who doesn't drink alcohol, but somebody that will only drink if they feel the situation will be improved by doing so. And actually 2.5 years later, that I still stand by that. That if I really do feel like having a drink is going to improve things, then I will. But I just haven't had that moment yet.
And you don't need it, really. Like, honestly, I think because you and I obviously are very in touch with personal development, and we love just that whole side of things. I mean, there's books that are countless and they'll never be ending. I'm sure you'll write your own book, Rach. I've got a feeling you will. But yeah, you're so right in terms of improving yourself, like mind, body and spirit, and feeling empowered, because it does make you feel better about yourself, doesn't it? Like, you don't need anything else to help that situation, really.
Yeah.
If you're honest.
Yeah, and I think I've learned to kind of stand up for myself more since I stopped drinking, because when you're putting yourself into a situation where you could be the only sober person in the room, you get a lot of questions. You do get people kind of gravitating towards you, and I'm finding out, well, what's going on here? Why are you not drinking? And it kind of gives you a bit of a backbone, because some parties, particularly like Christmas parties, where you're like a works Christmas party for me. Side note, I'm really pleased that I don't have a works Christmas party.
Yeah, they're scandalicious, aren't they? And I bet for you to watch as well, because you are like the director, you can see the bigger perspective of it all.
But what I found so difficult about works Christmas parties is that you're essentially socialising with people who you wouldn't usually socialise with, and you're doing it sober. So it can be quite awkward, because you're hanging out with people that you don't really know. And you tend to get a lot of questions. Why aren't you drinking? And yeah, you develop a thick skin. And I think that thick skin, I carry through kind of in my everyday life now. I've developed boundaries that I probably didn't have before. And that's all come from me deciding to stop drinking.
And for people going through dry January now and having those doubts or moments, can you reflect and remember how it was for you in the beginning? So May time, like in that first 100 days throughout the summer, did you have a wobble? Did you have a moment of weakness, or, you know, those negative thoughts taking over and you thinking, oh God, I don't know if I can do this? What would you say to them?
So yeah, thankfully I never really had a wobble, so in those first 100 days, because like you know me, I can be quite stubborn.
Yeah, you're very determined. Once your mind is made up, it's up.
Exactly. I'd set that 100-day goal, and there was just nothing anyone could do to change my mind. So I'd say if you are doing dry January and you might be carrying a bit of shame around it, because I know I did feel a little bit ashamed, make sure you tell people, look, I'm doing dry January, so it's a month. That means I'm not going to give in to your peer pressure of you trying to make me drink, because I've set this goal for myself and I'd like you to support me. And if they support you, well, don't go out with them again.
Yeah, and why did you feel ashamed, Rach? What brought that up?
I felt ashamed because I think the image we have in our heads of people who struggle, they must have reached some kind of rock bottom. And I think I didn't want people to think
That of you.
Kind of negative way, I guess. Yeah.
Again, like thinking about what other people think. Yeah. And a lot of it, I mean, knowing I don't have all the answers, but a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. It's not really real. It's all an illusion. And things we see even in magazines or, you know, on whatever website, on social media, is it really real?
And a lot of it, particularly for me, was what I thought other people thought of me. But I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what they think of me. And quite frankly, it's not really any of my business. But I was so wrapped up in my thoughts of what their thoughts might be. It was just a crazy, blurred mentality.
And a waste of energy, isn't it? You want to focus your energy on yourself and the people that matter. And you probably do have so much more time to invest in yourself and, you know, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Now, which is a great thing.
Yeah, definitely. And sleep. I love sleep. I sleep so
I know, it's very underrated. I need more sleep. I've just ordered a new eye cream for to come, birthday time, fingers crossed. So what message would you like to say to people who may want to make that decision or are thinking about it, haven't made the decision yet, and they'd like to try it? What would you like to say to them as, like, you know, their fairy godmother as a message for 2021 to maybe give it a try?
I would say try to connect with like-minded people, because you'll feel way less alone. When I first decided to make these changes, I didn't know anybody that didn't drink. But actually, as I'd said before, Instagram was an amazing platform for me. Instagram was an amazing platform. I just looked at the hashtag sober, and all these women, and men too, but women who I related to, popped up on my feed, and people I could see myself in, and they were still living a very fulfilled life with friends and families and going out partying and looking like they were having a great time, and they were doing it all sober, and my jaw was literally on the floor. That really helped me. So I would say connecting with others who are going through a similar thing, and just be really kind to yourself.
So true, especially in the beginning when it's new. Yeah, so true. And then you do, I remember in the summer in Clapham, we bumped into an old friend, and her boyfriend was sober too. And she was like, oh my gosh, you two need to meet. And it's amazing what people do come through, because it is becoming more common and more popular, isn't it? As more people take a step towards not having a drink. I think it's a real, you know, full off, hats off and respect to you for doing it.
And I think a lot of that comes down to the conversations we're now having around mental health, because I really do think there's a link between mental health and people who use alcohol to mask their mental health.
Do you think your mental health has improved since not drinking? Yeah.
Massively so. And I think now, so people who are either cutting down on booze or stopping altogether because they're realizing it's not great for their health. It's not great for their mental health or their physical health.
Yeah, it's a cover up, isn't it? And life's too short. I think you really need to listen to those little whispers, you know, like, I know you have the monkey mind, but your head and your heart, you know, I know they're often having maybe a little battle now and again, but when you get quiet and you listen, especially at nighttime, isn't it? Like, I think nighttime, probably early mornings are the times when people have to face up to those thoughts that they're not being busy with because they're not working, you know, whether you're in London or abroad or wherever you may be, family life, because that obviously takes over because you're dealing with, you know, your kids or your husband or your fiance or your other half or whoever it may be. As soon as you take time to like listen to you and have time for you is so key. And you're right, like put yourself first. And I think commit to making the decision to improve your life, because you have, and you are, you know, you're doing it. So it's an amazing thing, Rach, and good luck for keeping on, which I know you will. I have no doubt in my mind that you will, for sure. And where can people find you? Is it on your Instagram?
Yeah, so particularly at the beginning of my journey, I spoke quite a lot about, I say journey, when I first stopped drinking. I sort of was counting the days and hitting milestones and kind of celebrating those on Instagram. I would say I probably talk less about it now because it's now kind of my new normal. I'm still very much living a life where I don't drink booze. So yeah, my Instagram is Rachel_Emma_Davies.
Yes. And drop her a message and get in touch with anything, whether, you know, you just want to have a chat or somebody to speak to, because it's always good to just connect, isn't it? Especially now, no matter what age you are, even if you're older or, you know, from age 19 to 99, who knows?
I absolutely love it so much. And I have had a few messages from strangers since I started talking about it on Instagram. And it's just so lovely. It's the loveliest thing to hear from people who are doing the same thing and just want to connect with somebody. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And go you. I'm so proud of you. And I'm sending you the biggest hug. I feel like I haven't seen you for so long. Thank you so much for your time, Rach.
Thank you, Kimmy. I love you so much. I absolutely love what you're doing.
Oh, I love you. Thank you. And thanks, Lenny and Iggy, for joining in. Bless them. Mwah. And I'll see you soon, I hope. Fingers crossed. Bye. Thank you, Rach. Lots of love.